Hey guys, so today we'll be talking about for loops and how to execute them in Python and how to use them with different data structures like lists and sets and strings. So you might be wondering what for loops are. Basically, they're meant to execute a bunch of instructions in a repeated manner, and normally this is done like a fixed number of times. And usually, the programmer tells Python how many times you want the certain for loop to run. And so, let's say that you want your for loop to run 3 times. So, and when you declare your for loop, you would specify that, and then it would run your code, and then it would go back and run it again, and however many times you want it to. And basically, it's normally used for iterating over like a sequence, so going through a whole list or strings because they're executables. And each execution of code is one iteration. So if we had, if we wanted the for loop to run 3 times, the first time it's run, that's one iteration. And then the second time it's run, that's the second iteration. And so we're gonna be talking about iterative for loops. And this is just a basic example of how for loops are declared in order to go over a list. And so here we have like the for keyword, and that makes sense since it's a for loop. And next is a variable or like an element that is in your list. So in this example, we have a list of book names. And so basically this says that for like a single book in, so that's the in keyword, in your whole list. So again, that's for a single book in your book list. The colon indicates that you want to be a for loop, and then you have the indentation, and here I'm just printing out every single book in my list. And so that's basically a quick example of how for loops work. What you have to remember is to use the for keyword and the in keyword, and you should be good. So this is just an example for a list, and we can look at a more complicated example in our code. So let's say we have a list. We can stick with our books. So let's say we have a list called book list, and we're just gonna have a bunch of strings in here. So let's say we have Harry Potter series, and we have a we have the Hunger Games. I'm just thinking of series here. We have Divergent, and yeah, so we have 3 books in our book list. And now we just want to go over each element in our list and print it out. So how we're going to do this is have our for keyword. And then remember, you want it to be for every element in the list. So I'm just going to name it book. So for every book in my book list, don't forget the colon, I want to print out. And so basically, when I run this code, it should go over all these strings and print them all out. Let's see. There we go. So it did what we expected it to do. And so that's basically the basic format. So you have like the for keyword, and like you have the thing in the list, the in keyword, and then your list name. And this is just whatever you want it to do. So we could also have a list of numbers. Let's say I want to have 3, 4, 7, 9, and I want to go over and calculate the total in my number list. And so I just want to go over every single element. So I can do for n in num list. So this is basically saying for every number in my number list, I want to add it to the total. So just add the number to my total. And at the end, I just wanted to print out my total. And maybe we can also print out my number. All right, so if we run this now, it should print out whatever. So our list was 3, 4, 7, 9. And so it prints out here 3, 4, 7, 9, and the total, which is right. Okay, so as I said before, we can use for loops for lists, but we can also use them for strings because strings are also iterable, so we can use them for strings. So let's say I have a string called word, and I'm just gonna say the string is Harry Potter, and I want to go over every single letter in the string and print it out individually. All right, so we have our string here, and in order to do this, we're gonna have our for keyword, and then let's say my letter for every letter in the word, right? I want it to print out this letter. And so here we are. And when I run this, it should print it out. But remember that the space is also counted as part of the string. So that should also hopefully be printed out. Here we are. So we have the string Harry, and then the space, and then Potter. And that's basically how you use it for a string variable. It's basically the same as the list. There's not much of a difference. All right, and the last iterable like data structure that we learn of is a set. So we can also iterate over every single element in the set. So let's say we have a set of fruits. So that can just be, we just have a string of these fruits. Oh, I don't know if coconut is fruit. Okay. All right. Okay. So basically, in order to go over this, we have the same structure as we've had for strings and for the lists. So you're just going to have the for keyword, and I'm going to do for f, which is just simple. Or you know what? Let's change it to fruit set. Okay. So for every fruit in my fruit set, we're just gonna print it out. Print out the fruit. And so this should just go over every single element, every single fruit in my fruit set, and print it out. And it doesn't necessarily, like, this variable name can be anything you want it to be. It doesn't necessarily have to relate to your set name, but it's usually easier if it is. And so when we execute this code, it should print out apple, banana, orange. All right, and so it prints out these three elements, but because we know sets are unordered, whenever we execute this for loop, it doesn't have to come out in any specific order. It can literally be any order. So if I run it again, hopefully it will be in a different order. So before it was banana, apple, orange, now it's apple, orange, banana. So because that's our unordered, this for loop is like the print string is kind of irregular, and you can't really predict what it's going to print out. All you know is that it has to print out every single element that is in my set. I don't know what order it will print out in. All right, and so that's basically it for iterative for loops. Now we're just going to talk about another kind of for loops, and this is normally done with the range function. And so this is just a little bit more about the range function. There's 3 different kinds. So we have the range function with just one parameter. That's known as the stop index. So basically it starts from 0 and goes up till the stop index -1. So here, like if you look at the bottom, we have, if I call the range function and I put 5 as my stop index, the start index will be 0 and the stop index will be 5, but we want to print out the numbers in between 0 and 5 starting from 0. So you're going to have 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And it won't print out 5 because the range function only goes to stop index -1. And yeah, I think you should just be careful of that because sometimes people can get confused. All right, the next one has 2 parameters. It has the start index and the stop index. And so it starts from the index that you tell it to start at. So if I call range 2, 5, it will start at 2, so it includes the start index. It will go up in 1 increments. So it starts from 2, it'll go to 3, it'll go to 4, but it won't go to 5 because it only goes up to the stop index -1. So that would just be 4. Yeah, so you just have to remember that the stop index is exclusive. So it's never included in the printout. And the last one is, it has 3 parameters. It's the start index, stop index, and the step. So step is basically tells how many increments you want it to go up by. So let's say I wanted to skip a number in between, then I would make my step 2. So it would skip the number in between and go 2 and print out 2 steps. Okay, so how we use this range function in a for loop is like this. So as I said before, we have this for keyword, and then you just have any variable name. I told you guys that you can use anything you want. Normally we use I in a for loop, and then you have the in keyword, and then as I said before, this range function. So this is the inclusive index and the start index, and it starts from this number and it goes up to this exclusive index, this stop index -1. So, and here I'm just printing out, my for loop is just printing out this number. So what this should do is it prints out, it starts from 0, as I said, and it will print out everything up till 3, but not 3. So just be 0, 1, and 2. And in order to see this in action, let's say we have a string again, same example as we used before. We have Harry Potter, and now we want to go over this string, but instead of using the other for loop that I mentioned before, we want to use range. So in order to do that, we're just going to have for. It's the same format as before. You just have the for keyword, and then let's say for I in, I said the range function, and we want to start at since the string starts at the 0 index, so we definitely want to start it there, and we want to go up till the length of this word. So we're just going to go up till, we're going to use the len function to find out whatever the length is of our word, and we're just going to go from 0 up until the length of the word, which will hopefully go till the end. And then we're just going to print out the word. So basically what this does is it prints out the letter that is at this index. So if we have word 0, it should print out H. If it's word 1, it should print out A, and stuff like that. So basically this for loop goes from 0 to length word -1. Remember that it's this, the stop index is exclusive, so it will only go up to the length of the word -1, and it will go over this whole thing and print out the letters. And this is just a different way of doing iterating over a string instead of using the other type of for loop. And so if we run this, it should, as I said, print out every single letter and thing. Okay. If we want to skip a letter, as I said before, you can have the little step. And what this should do is print out, it should skip every other letter. So prints out H because it starts at 0, but then it skips the A because our step is 2. So it'll skip the A and it'll print out R, which is what happened right here. And I'll skip this one and print out the Y, which as you can see here. And so this goes on and on, and it prints out because we made our step 2. It'll print out every two letter. And yeah, that's basically the 2 different kind of for loops. Just a quick little recap. You can either go through a string or like an iterable, like lists and sets, like this. So you just have the for, the whatever variable name you want to call it, in your like string name or list name or set name, whatever. So this is just one kind of for loop. So this goes over every letter in my word and it prints it out. Prints the letter out. And this is just a different kind of for loop. This one uses the range function, which can take in 1 parameter, 2 parameters, or 3 parameters. So if it just takes in 1 parameter, that is just the stop index, and it goes up till 0 to the stop index -1. If it takes in 2 parameters, it would go from whatever you want the start index to be. So in this case, it would be 0 up until whatever stop index you tell it to be, -1. And if it has 3 parameters, the 3rd parameter is the step, and it will only do whatever you want it to do every, it will go up in step increments. So in this case, it would be every other. And yeah, that's basically how to do for loops and how to use them with iterables and using the range function. I hope you guys learned a lot, and I'll see you guys in the next lesson.